So week 10 is upon us, and this is 5 wide receivers I'm not going to play this week and bench. The first guy's Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings. Thielen, he's just not getting the job done in the last few weeks now. His last two fantasy days, 5.70 and 5.80, and it's not his fault really. Him and Jefferson, they're both not getting the job done. When you got Dalvin Cook going over 200 yards a game from scrimmage, the last two games, there's no need to throw for Kirk Cousins to Jefferson and Thielen a lot. Plus, we saw Irv Smith Jr. last week get 2 receiving touchdowns versus the Lions. And this week, it's another tough matchup for Thielen. He's got the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football, who give up the third least fantasy points to wide receivers. I don't like the matchup. They're going to ride Cook. They've won the last 2 games now, riding on Cook's shoulders to win the games, and that's what they're going to do again. Cook's the leader over there. He's going to get his 3-4 receptions out of the backfield as well and run the ball 25-30 times. And for Chicago, it's going to be the same game script I see from Minnesota. So Adam Thielen, I'm going to bench him. The second guy is DJ Chark. It was nice to see Chark have a huge game last week with 7 receptions, 146 yards, and a touchdown versus a weak Houston Texan defense and his new quarterback, Jake Luton. It was a 73-yard touchdown to start the game for Chark. But this week, I don't like the matchup versus the Green Bay Packers. He's got to go to Lambeau Field. It's going to be cold over there probably. Chark, he hasn't been consistent the whole year, and I don't think he's put 2 consistent games together in a row this season. And Green Bay gives up the 4th least fantasy points to wide receivers, so it's not going to look good for Chark. Jair Alexander, I know he got a concussion, but he might play in this game too. The Packers, they want to keep winning, so I just don't see it. Chark, he could get you 8 to 13 points, but I think there's better options guys have on their rosters and they could start. The third receiver I'm benching here is DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. And like I've been saying in other videos, DJ Moore, it looks like he's the 4th guy in the pecking order over there behind McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, who's really stepped up of late. And then Christian McCaffrey, obviously, who's back out of the backfield. Only 3 targets for 18 yards is more. Then we saw him with only 2 catches, 55 yards a few weeks ago on Thursday night versus Atlanta. Now he's got a Tampa Bay defense that I said about Teddy Bridgewater in the other video, that they're going to be hungry and they're going to try to send a statement to Carolina in Carolina this week. So I don't see Bridgewater having a good game or DJ Moore. More the targets all season haven't been there. He's only got, in his last few games, 14 targets in his last 3 games. That's not that good for a number 1 receiver. Maybe Moore really isn't a number 1 with coverage rolling to him, and he just can't get open. So DJ Moore, he's a guy I'm going to bench this week. And if you don't have a choice, you got to start him. But there's better options than him too, I would say. The 4th guy I'm going to bench is Jarvis Landry of the Cleveland Browns. Landry, he's been banged up with ribs and multiple injuries this season. But Landry, I know he's the number 1 there with Beckham gone. But the thing is, Houston, it's a pretty solid matchup. But he's just not getting the job done, is Landry. And now Baker Mayfield, who knows if he's going to play. He's on the COVID list. I know they're coming off a bye. They're going to get Nick Chubb back. Him and Hunt are going to get a lot of work in that backfield, I think, versus Houston. And I just can't trust Landry this season. In PPR formats, Landry only has 4 games out of the 8 with double digits. And that's not getting the job done with his high this season, 17 fantasy points. So Landry, he hasn't cracked 100 yards all year. And that's not going to happen again, even versus a Houston defense that gives up the 7th most fantasy points to receivers. So Landry, I'm going to stay away from him. And the 5th and final guy is Marvin Jones of the Detroit Lions. Jones, he was the number 1 receiver last week for the Lions with the injury to Kenny Golladay. And Jones, he was all right, but I just don't see him doing much this week, is Jones, versus a good Washington defense. And now if Matthew Stafford's out, that's another minus on the record for Jones. Jones, he had a good game last week, like I said, 3 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown. But if you don't get that touchdown, the targets and the receptions aren't there for a great game. So he's versus Washington. They give up the least amount of points to receivers. And if Galladay's back, he'll be 3rd in the pecking order anyway, behind Galladay and Hawkinson. So Marvin Jones is a guy I'm going to sit on the pine this week. So that's 5 wide receivers I'm benching going into week 10.